And here we go. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome one and all to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today, taking a look at some clips from the news and having a little bit of dialogue with those of you who are able to join us for the live portion. And of course, you can join the live portion Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube on Coffee Talk and Prepper University. That is at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. You can also find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Coffee Talk Chat, and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. Being joined today by three feline friends keeping me company. For those of you who can see, there is Miss Kitty napping in the chair. There is Daniel sleeping on top of the printer. And then there's Granny Smith, who you cannot see because she's sitting on the desk. And there she is. The lovely Miss Granny Smith, everybody keeping me company as we get ready to dive into what is going on in our outrageous world today and take a look at what's relevant in the news. Or maybe it's just what they want you to think is relevant. And for the benefit of those of you who are listening and not able to see naturally, I do read through as many of the comments as is plausible. And I'll say hello to the people who have chosen to chime in thus far. I see Marvel Fan is here. Helter. Dragon. Cyberjack Senior, who says thumbs up. Yes, if you don't mind, I'll take all the thumbs up I can get. Raccoon is here. Tuck. Delo. Fluke Man. I got more UK news for you, Fluke Man. You'll love this one. New York Patriot. John is here. And H12 so far have chosen to say hello, as well as Donna Beaver, who also says thumbs up, like, and share. Yes, if you don't mind, I'll take all the thumbs up. I'll take all the accolades I can get. Anything to snub in the face of ScrewTube, who hates my guts. Big news today. Big news today. Cori Bush is out. That's two now because Jamal Bowman is out, so the squad's falling apart. And this is a Fox News article. It says, "Be afraid. Bush threatens pro-Israel group in bizarre rant after wide margin loss." There she is. She looks like a handful. She looks like somebody that, you can't tell anything to. Doesn't she look like a handful? You know that expression on her face, like, oh God, I don't want to talk to that woman. So here we go. Democratic Representative Cori Bush of Missouri used her concession speech this week to blast the nation's largest pro-Israel group, warning them to be afraid. Bush, who lost her primary election this week to a pro-Israel Democratic rival, financially backed by the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, warned that the group's influence on the election has radicalized her. They were already kind of radicalized, but whatever. Bush called out AIPAC in her concession speech. All they did is radicalize me, so they need to be afraid, she said. AIPAC, I'm coming to tear your kingdom down, Bush declared, and let me put all of these corporations on notice. I'm coming after you too. Bush, a controversial lawmaker who rose to prominence in the Black Lives Matter movement, was denied a third term when Democratic voters nominated St. Louis County Prosecutor Wesley Bell for the seat that represents St. Louis City and part of St. Louis County. So basically, she's upset because she had such a pro-Palestinian stance that AIPAC, or AIPAC, I don't know how you pronounce that acronym, AIPAC, AIPAC, whatever, American Israel Public Affairs Committee, decided to fund her opponent. And, she's blaming them for losing the election. Well, that's like admitting that an election can be bought. isn't it? Isn't that like admitting an election can be bought? If you're saying you lost because your other opponent got as much funding as you did? Because believe it, these people get millions. Her war chest was pretty fat. So the opponent got as much as you did and you lost, and you think it was bought? And rather than saying, okay, I lost, no, you're going to be a sore loser and you're going to make threats. And Marvel fan thinks Bush being out is a blessing. And then Nature Nerd says that Kamala ads are flooding YouTube right now. Today, repeated multiple times. Yeah, I bet. I've been seeing a lot of that. And that's what all people are saying. That's right. Cori Bush lost her election. So did Jamal Bowman. That's 2 down and 5 to go. New York Patriots happy about that. And Raccoon Eyes has a problem with her nails. I have a problem with those like long ass fake acrylic nails also, because I always wonder how they wipe. Actually, I know how it's done. I've mentioned it before. There are YouTube videos that give tutorials on how to clean your behind if you have long acrylic nails. It's not pleasant. Marvel says, imagine if they all get kicked out. Yeah, that could happen. They're still on the nails. Tuck says that's the nails of someone who does zero manual labor beyond applying cosmetics. If she even puts her own cosmetics on. Remember, the mayor of Chicago was called out for having spent tens of thousands of dollars getting makeup treatments. Dragon said she embodies every single negative talking point you will hear about Democrats and the right wing, and she gives Fox News that rare bit of valid ammunition. And Brian has made it here. Glad you could join us today, as well as Monkey. Helter says this is the same woman who claimed that she cured some homeless woman's cancer with her hands. The cancer was probably scared of her and ran away. There is a video clip. I think I can play this without getting in trouble. Remember, I got in trouble the other day for showing that video footage of the Chick-fil-A drone.
There is nothing that happens in my life that happens in vain. So if this happened, it's because it was meant to happen. And let me say, it's because of the work that I need to do. And let me say this.
And by the way, where it goes blank when she's speaking, it's because she's yelling into the microphone so loud that the amp is cutting out. That's why you're getting those blank spots.
APAC, I'm coming to tear your kingdom down.
I mean, talk about a sore loser. Seriously. Talk about a sore loser. Nature Nerd said Russia and Belarus were barred from the 2024 Olympics, so these athletes have to compete under neutral individual athletics and don't get a ceremony. Their medals aren't listed in the tally also. They're probably just as well not being in the Paris Olympics. It continues to get further embarrassing because, you know, we already talked about the no air conditioning, the cardboard beds, the vegan diets, the lack the food shortage on top of the vegan diets. They found athletes sleeping in the park because they couldn't stay in the accommodations anymore. It was too uncomfortable. They finally brought them fish. The fish was contaminated. It had to be thrown out. It was contaminated with parasitic worms. Tuck says she can't even operate a mic. No. Well, if you scream, if I sat here and screamed into this mic, it would cut out. I'm already loud enough.
And let me put all of these corporations on notice. I'm coming after you too. But I'm not coming by myself. I'm coming with all the people.
Oh, it cut me off for an ad. Sorry, folks. It cut me off for some ad. But what a sore loser.
People that's in here that's doing the work.
Here's the thing, though, with people like this, those people that are all standing around cheering, they're not going to support her. They'll come out there and stand around and clap and yell, but push comes to shove, they're not going to be there for her. People like this eat their own. They'll sacrifice you, leave you behind in a heartbeat. They will not stand behind her. And Jane is here. Says poor athletes, bad food, and bad beds, and it gets worse. You know, also with the E. coli, the triathletes, a lot of them are getting sick, and some of them have been hospitalized with dangerous levels of E. coli. Raccoon says she's got that "come at me, bro" look. That's why she shouldn't have been hired for the job in the first place. Because I mean that attitude, she's always been like that. She's always been like that. And Nature Nerd says Tim Waltz was responsible for Minneapolis buying down the summer of 2020. National Guard blocked. He really is just like Kamala. I have a few things to say about him today because I looked into him. And John says that her voice is painful. Yeah, I won't play any more of the clip because you get the idea. She's just screaming and crying. And there's another squad member that's there, and she's literally in tears, you know, because they can see their kingdom falling apart. And Fluke Man wants to know about Olympic viewers want Ethan Katzberg and Canadian hammer thrower to do DNA tests because he looks Australian. Who cares if he was non-white? I don't know about. I haven't heard anything about that. I don't know anything about that. But we were going to talk about. We were going to talk about Tim Waltz. I got a couple of points here. One is an article that just came out. One is an article that just came out exposing fraud that he's connected to. And another is talking points showing his voting record that I thought was very interesting. So Daily Caller article flashback, audit found that Tim Waltz's administration overlooked a $250 million fraud scheme. So lack of oversight from Democratic Governor Tim Waltz of Minnesota's administration contributed to the theft of $250 million from a federal food aid program, according to audits that were published by the Office of Legislative Auditor, for the state of Minnesota in June. So this just came out. The scheme's participants allegedly doctored invoices for millions of meals for children, ultimately siphoning off more than $250 million in federal funds, the OLA report has found. Waltz, who was selected Tuesday by Vice President Kamala Harris to be her running mate in an upcoming presidential election, claimed he was unable to stop the scheme due to a 2021 court order to resume payments, which the judge has disputed. So the judge said, I never said that. I never made that order. The Minnesota Department of Education, which fell under Waltz's purview as governor, failed to act on warning signs known to the department prior to the onset of the C virus pandemic and prior to the start of the alleged fraud, did not effectively exercise its authority to hold Feeding Our Future accountable program requirements, as was ill prepared to respond to the issues it encountered with Feeding Our Future. I guess Feeding Our Future is the name of the organization. The OLA audit stated. And here's the Kamala Harris ad. I'm proud to announce I've asked Tim Waltz to be my running mate as a governor, a coach, a teacher, and a veteran. He's delivered for working families like his. It's great to have him on our team. Now let's get to work and join us. And my question would be, where Waltz is concerned then, who was it that had that contract and what is his connection to them that he covered for them to the point where he even lied about the judge creating a court order to prevent him from stopping the fraud. Because the judge disputes it, says, I never did that, and there's no record, which exemplifies that he never did that. Baki says he's Caribbean and not going anywhere. Tell the other commenter to remove me. Oh, okay, I guess you guys are bickering. Don't bicker. New York Patriot says, I heard about the guy just because he has a mustache and a mullet. They think he's Australian. What are you guys talking about? That Olympiad? John doesn't want to vote. He's going to have a bacon sandwich instead. All people said Waltz probably helped them stake that money so he could use it to transition more kids. And Eric Peter says, join us. Sounds like the film They Live. They Live, that is a very important classic 80s film. You should see it. You should see it if you have not. But where is that image? I do have something that I wanted to show that is connected to Tim Waltz. No, that's not it. Hang on a moment, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to find it here. Here it is. This is what I'm looking for. And this comes from Greg Price on X. I think this is from X. And it has Waltz's track record. And pull it up here. And I'm going to read that list. Because like I said, he doesn't have a huge internet profile. There's not a lot of people talk about him, which is probably why he was selected. Plus, he hits some other buttons. He was a veteran. He did have a real job at some point. You see what I'm saying? Instead of just being a career politician. But there are some discrepancies. Besides the $250 million scheme, which is mentioned on this list as well. And again, this is credited to Greg Price. I believe this is from his X account. It says, allowed Minneapolis to burn to the ground during the Floyd riots. That's right. Oversaw a $250 million C virus fraud scheme, the largest in America, and was called out by the judge for lying about the scandal. We just read that story. That's true. Forced C virus patients into nursing homes, which resulted in mass death. I remember that. Imposed draconian lockdowns and set up a hotline so people could snitch on their neighbors. That I'm not sure about, but, I don't live in Minnesota. Signed a law giving illegals driver's licenses, free college, and free health care. Supports cities refusing to comply with federal immigration laws. Said he would invest in a ladder company to help illegals climb over a border wall. I'm sure that was a joke, but yeah, still careful what you say. Signed a law putting menstrual products in boys' bathrooms. I remember that. Stupidest thing in the world. Stupid. Where are they going to put it? They did that one on South Park, remember? They did that one on South Park and all the boys were using a tampon the wrong way. Made Minnesota a sanctuary state for child sex changes. Yeah, a lot of this is coming back to my remembrance now. Legalized infanticide with the most radical abortion law in the country that repealed the state law requiring babies born during a botched abortion to receive medical care. I remember that. And I remember Trump talking about it. Are you okay, dear? That noise was Granny Smith coughing because she's still sitting on the desk here. Sorry, cat distraction. God, education spending increased under his watch in Minnesota, but less than half of the children can read and do math at grade level, and has said that Trump and his supporters are fascists. And it says also that he quit his National Guard unit just as it was about to be deployed to Iraq. There it is. There it is. What's wrong, Granny Smith? You okay, honey? Sorry, folks. Granny Smith was coughing. She's all right now, though. She's all right now, though. But anyways, yeah, that's his track record. And that the botched abortion one, that's from late abortions. And usually in the majority of states, what's required is that you do go through some procedures to try to save that baby. It goes to the hospital, whatever. But what they did, I forget the term for it, but they wrap it up in a blanket and they set it somewhere and just let it essentially starve to death. Basically, they don't have to do anything. They don't have to do anything. Sven said he's a brown shirt recruiter. That's all very disturbing, that entire list. And as I read the list, I'll put it back up here again really quick. I know, like I said, I got distracted on account of Granny Smith there. The apple of my eye. That I remember most of this. You know, as I read through the list, I'm like, yeah, I remember reading that. I remember hearing about that. These are all true. This is a mess. He's about as bad as anyone else she could have picked. She didn't pick Shapiro because she's trying to pretend to be down with pro-Palestinian supporters. That's why. And Monkey says the governor might have a good internet footprint, but not a great one during his time and his governorship. Yeah, good internet footprint because there isn't much to find, which is what they wanted. There isn't much to find. And that makes for a good footprint, as it were, but that doesn't mean that he's good at his job or that he's a decent or reliable or trustworthy person by any means. Because those are some very radical decisions. Those are some very radical decisions that he had made. Some other images I wanted to share here. Hold on a moment. While they're asking for donations, and Nature Nerd says, pretty damning list. Tim Waltz is evil and stupid. Yeah, it is pretty damning. It is pretty damning. I found this and I thought this was interesting. Today is the day I hope you will donate. Now, this is taken from her one of her ads where she's asking for donations. Okay? And it was noticed someone caught the necklace that she's wearing in this advertisement. And they were able to identify the necklace, which is from Tiffany and Company. It says the bold graduated link necklace with a price tag of $62,000. I just thought this was interesting. $62,000 necklace, but you're asking me to make donations. How do you afford that? All people says, oh my God, those poor babies. Yeah, that's how that works. At that, the botched late term. The botched late term. They bought, and I forget the term for it. I saw the news clip like a couple of years back. They said, oh, well, and they make it sound so nice. Oh, we wrap them up in the blanket to keep them warm and we set them aside and we just let nature take its course. You let them lay there and die and lay there and starve to death. It's pretty evil. It's pretty evil. Patriot says there's actually a lot of stuff coming about him for someone who wasn't well known. Yeah. Oh, it's out there. You just got to find it. You got to dig it up. But again, this was interesting to me. And Fluke Man, you still in here? This next one's for you. We all know who this is, right? Do you notice anything interesting about this picture? I'm gonna show you something. And Jane says all those rich celebrities and politicians buy expensive stuff. Yeah, no kidding. 65. I think if I had that kind of money, I couldn't imagine spending $65,000 on a necklace. That's like buying a car or putting a down payment on a house. Are you kidding me? A new car. I couldn't imagine spending that much on a new car. I don't want a new car. A good used one will be fine. You know what I mean? Fluke Man says he's still here. You know who that is, don't you, Fluke Man? You know who that is. Brian says Kamala Harris would do that to them. You notice anything weird about this picture? I'm gonna show you my observation. I noticed something interesting. Okay. I don't know if anybody spotted it. I'll help you out here in a moment. Don't worry. And for those of you who are listening and not able to see what we're talking about, this is a picture of Prince Charles. Patriot says he looks extraordinarily red. Yeah, that is, or King Charles, excuse me. He's King Charles now. He is King Charles now, not Prince Charles. You know, I'm a little behind the times here. All right, get ready for this. Let's do a close-up. Now, do you notice anything? Oh my God. Oh no. Yeah. And so this I thought this was really interesting. It's his hands. Again, I know some of you are listening and not able to see. Fluke Man says he doesn't look confident with the way he has his hands. I wouldn't be confident either if my hands look like hot dogs. His Jane says he has joint issues, swollen hands. Now, that's what I'm talking about. They're like kielbasa's, his fingers. They're massive. The fingers they're so big it doesn't make sense. And it's been like this for a long time because if you look at the nails are wide and flat. They look bad. The nails look bad too, okay? I've seen this before. Remember, I used to work in mental health with people who are physically and mentally disabled. Now, barring, okay, because I'll allow for it. Sven says it's inbreeding and drinking blood. Maybe. Barring the possibility, because you never know, that A, it's some underlying medical condition, or B, a reaction to medication. That's what true decadence looks like. Those are hands that never get used at all. I've seen it on people with partial paralysis, and their hands, they swell up and all the lines disappear from their knuckles. There's no detail. There's no detail on their hands because they don't use them. Like if you look at the back of your hand, you should see the tendons, you should see veins, you should see lines on the knuckles and so on. And all people says adrenochrome withdrawal. And Tuck says, I'd in theory buy expensive jewelry, but for specific niche purposes, wearing gold anklets under socks isn't a bad way to always have portable wealth. Would never let anyone know about it. Jane says, did he have cancer? I don't know. But like I said, I've also seen that kind of jointing in people that never use their hands. They never use them. I just thought it was interesting, kind of bizarre, actually. Kind of bizarre, in my opinion. But, you know, like a normal hand, you can see lines, tendons, veins, you know. If you use your hands a lot, unless you smash them a lot, they're not, I use scratches all over mine because of the cats. They're usually fairly slender because it narrows out. Yeah, they are very bizarre. His hands are bizarre. And Dane says, I think he has pancreatic cancer and prostate cancer. Ugh, prostate cancer. Yucko. Lack of activity can cause that. You know what that means. This is a little bit of a consumer report, and this comes from something called Tom's Guide. Tuck says, so he's differently abled, question mark. That looks awful. Seen a few sick elderly folk with similar conditions. Not so much that he's differently abled as in he doesn't use his hands. We're talking about someone who doesn't even dress himself, who's always had everything done for him. He doesn't have to use his hands because he doesn't do anything, literally. Tom's Guide, this just happened. 2.9 billion people hit in one of the largest data breaches ever. Full names, addresses, and social security numbers have been exposed. Stolen data was then put up for sale on the dark web. So, as reported by Bloomberg, news of the massive new data breach was revealed as part of a class action lawsuit that was filed at the beginning of this month. A complaint submitted to the U.S. District Court of the Southern District of Florida claims the exposed personal data belongs to a public record data provider named National Public Data, which specializes in background checks and fraud prevention. Nice job. The personal data of 2.9 billion people, which includes full names, former and complete addresses going back 30 years, social security numbers, and more, was stolen from the National Public Data by a cyber criminal group that goes by the name USDOD. The complaint goes on to explain that the hackers then tried to sell this huge collection of personal data on the dark web to the tune of $3.5 million. So it says, how does a firm like National Public Data obtain the personal data of almost 3 billion people? The answer is through scraping, which is a technique used by companies to collect data from websites and other sources online. What makes the way National Public Data did this more concerning is that the firm scraped personally identifiable information of billions of people from non-public sources. As a result, many of the people who are now involved in the class action lawsuit did not provide their data to the company willingly. Basically, this is from everybody selling personal data. You already know this happens. The credit card companies, the banks, the DMV sells your data to each other, to other companies. Facebook, Google, any of the social media gathers and sells data. This is a company that pools as much of it as it can get to sell it to other people. And they've got 30 years worth of data on nearly 3 billion people from all over the globe. And somebody hacked their system. Fluke Man says he must dress himself. Are you kidding? That guy doesn't dress himself. No. You know those people. Watch Upstairs, Downstairs. Those people don't dress themselves. I wouldn't be surprised out if there are still official wipers that that work at the palace. Oh my God. And Zane is here. There you go. Glad you could make it today. But yeah, 2.9 billion people. It says, as part of the class action lawsuit, this plaintiff is asking the court to have National Public Data Security dispose of all its personal information that it acquired through scraping. However, he also wants the firm to compensate him and the other victims financially while implementing stricter security measures going forward. This didn't used to happen when we weren't on the internet. Dragon says it's gotten painfully apparent that the crooks are smarter than the people that protect us. Sure looks that way, doesn't it? And JJ says it never ceases to piss me off when companies like this are responsible for massive data breaches, but we the people suffer the consequences. Exactly. Nature Nerd says, would video games help Prince Charles's hands? Well, he'd have to be willing to use them. He'd have to be willing to use them. You know, this is a person who's accustomed to this, it appears, to not using his hands at all. So who knows? But this is the problem. You know, back in the day when everything was done manually, when we were still swiping credit cards on a reader, who remembers that? Who's old enough to remember that when you went and used a store card because there was only Master Charge and Visa and Discover was just coming out, and you had American Express, which almost nobody would take, and they had the card reader, which was this big metal box with a slide on top, and you had the carbon. It had like 4 copies it would make, and you put the card on there and run it across, and then you'd make a phone call to the card company, and they would check and see if they had any money on their account. Paul says they want to go to digital money. No kidding. No kidding. Yeah, that'll be excellent. You didn't have data breaches in those days. It was impossible to get your hands on it. And I've talked about it before. I went to computer classes when I took my first time I took computer classes in the early to mid 90s. There was a woman that was in there that used to work for Sears in the credit card division. I've told this story before. H12 says he hated those. Yeah, but they couldn't steal your data. She used to work for Sears in their credit card. And she said that it was like a big warehouse with signs hanging on the ceiling that had the names of different states. And there was a whole row of people on the walls with phones. And she was a runner. So they would get a call from such and such store and take one of the runners, hey, so-and-so who has an account in Missouri wants to charge X amount. And they'd write it down and they'd run to the corresponding state box that was on the floor. And it was a huge warehouse-sized building, like an airplane hangar or something, she said. And they go through it. It was a huge box on the floor, about waist high. And it was like a standing up filing cabinet. And they'd flip through, find the person's account, see if there was enough, make a notation on that card, and then run back to the person on the phone. You couldn't steal that information. Baki says, my MMA coach always said a man's hands should have knuckles on them. A man with no definable knuckles hasn't done no work. Exactly. That's why this should be detailed. You should be able to see veins. You should be able to see tendons. You should be able to see the wrinkles from where the knuckles are. Yeah, no kidding. Monkey says, I only remember those back in elementary school. Thought it was used for a different reason, like learning on how to pronounce the word and hear it with the huge headphones. Huge headphones, huh? But yeah, that's you could not steal data back then. Unless it was done individually, like in the store. But then you're going directly through a call center and you're still talking to someone. And then, you'd have to show your ID. You don't have to show ID anymore. Remember back then you used to have to sign the back of the card and they'd have to look at your ID, verify that the name matched the card and that the signature on the back of the card matched the driver's license before they would even swipe the card. Nobody does that anymore. You don't even have to use your PIN anymore. You can put your card in and there's a button now that says bypass PIN. Yeah, let's not even bother with that. I can take someone's card and run all over freaking town. It's incredible the way it's gone. And yeah, let's make everything digital because cash is bad because, the war on drugs and all. For sure. Consumer warning again. Another consumer warning. Zane says that he remembers when you used to have to sign your life away to use a card. You still do. You just can't see the paper trail anymore. And this article comes from Fortune magazine, and it's a warning about Cocoa Puffs. That's right. Lawsuits allege high levels of lead in General Mills Cocoa Puff cereal. If it's in Cocoa Puffs, it's in other General Mills products, because all of these different types of cereals, any kind of extruded cereal, it's all being made in one place. It's all being made in the same place. So Cocoa Puffs, one of the most popular breakfast cereals for children, is accused of having dangerously high levels of lead in a pair of class action lawsuits. The pair of suits filed in Minnesota and California are seeking $5 million in damages for consumers who would not have purchased and consumed this cereal had they known the truth about the product. General Mills did not reply to Fortune's request for comment. Of course they didn't. The California suit alleges a 1-cup serving of the cereal contains just under the state's maximum limit of lead, which is 0.5 micrograms. Most consumers, however, the suit notes, pour well beyond that amount when they opt for a bowl. The Minnesota suit alleges the company failed to disclose that the product could poison the consumer. Of course, people don't just eat 4 ounces at a time. I think it's 4 ounces is a serving, right? Who sits there and eats 4 ounces of cereal? Who does that? And Brian made a donation to the channel. Thank you, Brian. Very much appreciated. Granny Smith would appreciate it if say, hey, I lost everybody. All my feline friends are gone except for Daniel. Well, they appreciate it anyways. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian. Let me see as I try to catch up a couple of these. Paul says it's okay in food, but not in paint. Yeah, they wouldn't let you use paint in or lead in paint anymore because the concern was that children, I'm old enough to remember this in the 70s, would chew on windowsills and ingest the paint by accident. You ever seen a kid chew on a windowsill? I mean, people are stupid, but they're not that dumb. Raccoon says cereal doesn't taste good anymore, just tastes like chemical. Yeah, it's not the same as when we were kids, is it? It's not the same as when we were kids. Zane says lead's in everything nowadays from mining. JJ says, I guess I'm not cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs anymore. And again, if it's in this, it's in other General Mills products. It has to be. Tuck says, I hardly ever eat such breakfast cereals. I don't like the sweet foods in the morning. About twice a year, we make Rice Krispies treats. It changed a lot when they got rid of the sugar. Because it used to be sugar frosted flakes, sugar crisp. You know what I mean? Everything was sugar this and sugar that. And it had cane sugar in it. And they got rid of the cane sugar. They took sugar off of the label and they substituted it with corn syrup. It doesn't taste the same anymore. It's just not the good. It's just not that good anymore. Dragon says none of these cereal corporations executives eat their own products. No, they can afford to eat better than that. And, $5 million, that's a drop in the bucket for General Mills. What the hell do they care? They'll pay it. Jane says, I think all the folks in the U.S. need to have stored food and water because I think end of the year something weird will happen to the food supply. That could be. That could be. Helter says it's a sad world when you're convinced Americans it's their fault for not checking if the food sold at the grocery store is poisoned. Not that anybody reads any of the damn labels anyways. They don't know what they're eating, which is why I do stuff like this sometimes, like talking about the Ento milk, for example. And people are like, what the hell is that? Or A-peel, the coating that they've been spraying on a lot of the fruits and vegetables. Stuff's dangerous. Paul Burke says, chew on painted cots. H12 said they've been on anti-cereal ever since mom dumped mine over my head the first day of kindergarten because I was slow. Oh my. Sounds like my mother. Floatman says lead from the soil. Civil War used lead as ammo and companies jumping waste. Yeah, I'm way behind. Yeah, Eric Peters said sugar pops and corn pops. Yeah, it's all of the cereals used to say sugar. Sugar Smacks, Sugar Pops, Sugar Frosted Flakes, sugar this and sugar that. And they took sugar away and changed it for corn syrup, which is worse. You're better off with cane sugar than corn syrup. And Tuck says, well, many windowsills down here are either slabs of stone, usually marble or tile, not chewy. I really think they blamed old paint to hide actual sources. That could be. That could be. But yeah, just general warning. If you eat General Mills cereal, to watch out. To watch out. Because it's got freaking lead in it. Freaking lead in the cereal. You can't win. You can't win. Oh, and I promised some UK news for Fluke Man, since he's in that area. You'll love this. They found a way, and this is from Trib, is the name of this news story. They're going to be rolling these out in the UK, and it's going to solve all of that street violence. All those street, it's a thing of the past. They've got a new product that's going to stop all those kids from running around stabbing each other. Excited? Are you excited about this? You'll love this. Here it comes. Zane says the UK is burning down. Yeah, they're on the verge of civil war. Anytime. Here we go. Again, this is Trib. Company changes the game with square-tipped knives. A British cutlery company has gotten the point. Wah, wah. Well, to be more accurate, it's gotten rid of the point. British silversmith company Viners has responded to a new law passed in May 2019 by the Parliament of the United Kingdom. The Offensive Weapons Act was designed to address violent attacks in the country. The act reclassified kitchen knives as an offensive weapon, and that's where Viners stepped in. The company came up with a new style of knife that literally cuts off the sharp tip. We have designed a highly functional knife which is shaped to reduce and prevent injuries, accidents, and fatalities, whilst still offering the same performance expected of a standard kitchen knife, the company's site says. The knife's stainless steel blades have a black non-stick coating that helps reduce cutting friction and have curved soft touch handles. On its website, the company says it's consulted with about 1,700 UK consumers on the best shape for a new knife. Can we see a close-up of this knife? No, it won't let us see a close-up. You can see the picture there. It's not exactly flat. It's rounded on the end and wide, so you can't stab anybody with it. You can't stab anybody with it. Fluke Man says Prime Minister said he's considering deploying the army for the protests. Yeah, there aren't enough police on standby. There aren't enough police. We're on day 8 now, right? Jane says, what good does a square knife do? And the Jericho said that's basically a blunted object now. Exactly. Zane says you can still stab with a square tip. Oh, no, apparently not. Apparently not. Hold on a second. Where did I read? Is it down here? Because it says further on that they have practiced stabbing with these knives and that they will not penetrate whilst stabbed. I know what you're talking about. If you know what you're doing, you can take somebody out with a butter knife. But more to the point, you know, if I'm holding a knife, especially a kitchen knife, I'm not going to stab with it. I'm going to slash with it. You can still slash the crap out of somebody with a, especially with a wavy edge like these have. I know you can't see it, but you got those wavy edges. You piss out of somebody with a knife with no tip. Or, you know, a really savvy knife owner could just file that end down or clip the tip off if they just had to stab somebody. Oh my God. Tuck says they could do plenty with a square tip knife. You should see what I can do with a shovel, even in my current condition. Exactly. Especially with a knife that's shaped like this, isn't really designed for stabbing anyways, because you risk your hand sliding over the end of the blade. I would slash with this with a reverse-handed grip. Oh my God. As I try to catch up, I think the window is interfering with the scrolling. Here we go. Jane says they learned a tip: if you use metal baseball, I guess bat for defense, put a sock on it. It'll help you hold it better, but not your enemy. I see. And Baki says, so what? People are just going to slash or cut now? Some update. Paul wants to know what they're going to do with hammers. Well, I guess you're going to have I guess you're going to have a special license for a hammer, and have it on like a little chain on your belt if you're a carpenter. All people wants the British to make square tip boats and planes. There you go. Dragon says, screw that. Totally a marketing ploy. I think it's time for chainmail armor to make a comeback. Unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah, Monkey says, get a knife sharpener. Exactly. And then Fluke Man says, what's stopping thugs from sharpening it themselves? Yeah. Or like I said, I don't know how well they could sharpen it, but you could easily like clip that end off or learn to slash, which you should do with that type of knife rather than trying to stab somebody. Incredible. Tuck says that it's a clever marketing move, and I wish I'd thought of it. Exactly. Because there's a lot of people that'll be bought in with that. There's a lot of people that could be bought in with that. H12 says, I have 5 pairs of scissors within reach. Scissors are better than a kitchen knife. Prime Mover says, you could stab with a knife with no tip. Ask them politely to stop moving around. And Zane says you can kill with slashes. It's just harder. As we move around here, Zane says use a screwdriver. Yeah, you can use a scissors. Do I have a pair sitting here? Scissors would be better. Prepper moment. Okay. You open the scissors. You put the opposing end against your arm for resistance, and you can stab and block. See, if you had to stab with a pair of scissors, it's better to have them this way. You won't slide over it. You see? Scissors are better than a kitchen knife. If you're stabbing. If you're stabbing. Oh my God. I just thought that was entertaining, honestly. And, oh, I wanted to share this because I had mentioned it the other day. Because, you know, just making the point, I'm not making this stuff up. And I was talking about Donald Trump. Okay, talking about Donald Trump and what it says about him in Russian textbooks. So here we go for context. Marvel fan says anything could be made into a deadly weapon. Yeah, it takes some imagination and a little bit of practice. You can figure it out. Jane says, learned so much stuff here, going overseas, putting it in my purse, in my car. But here we are. This is a Newsweek article. Russian textbooks say that Trump lost in a rigged election. There it is. A new textbook for Russian students claims former President Trump lost the 2020 presidential election due to voter fraud committed by Democrats. As I had mentioned this, I think Monday, correct? It says images from the history book, which is reportedly used by students in the 11th grade, have circulated on social media in recent days. Mark Bennett's foreign correspondent for The Times posted a page from the book on Monday on his X account, translating the book, which says Trump lost the election as a result of obvious electoral fraud from the Democrat Party. Trump has also been criticized for dishing out compliments to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Though he condemned Putin's invasion of Ukraine, still some Russian analysts have suggested that the Kremlin may prefer Trump winning in 2024 over Biden. Well, if America sinks, everybody does, Russia included. When contacted for information about the textbooks, Sonin provided Newsweek with a PDF copy of the book. He also told Newsweek that he didn't doubt the authenticity of the contents, and that the book's publication was announced earlier this year during a press conference by the book's authors and Sergei Kravtsov, Russia's Minister of Education. And this is, let me see if I can blow this up. No, it's not going to let me blow it up. Okay. That's a copy of the book. That's a copy of the book. And translated, again, from the Russian, it says the New World History textbook for high schools in Russia quietly informs kids Donald Trump was denied presidency in 2020 as a result of, quote, obvious falsifications by the Democratic Party. The reverse cargo cult is a staple of authoritarian what? Authoritarian what? It got cut off. Hold on a second. I don't know. It got cut off. But that's the actual textbook that's pictured there for context. Because like I said, I talked about it, I think Monday, that Russian textbooks, high school history textbooks, now claim that Trump was robbed of the election through obvious fraud that was perpetrated by the opposition. Flukeman says, I'm surprised Russia has come this far with the 2020 election, considering they have their own problems to worry about. Absolutely. And I just think this is interesting how this is viewed from other countries' perspectives outside of how we're told to think about it in the United States. How we're told. And then it goes on to say, this is on the next page here. You see a picture of Joe Biden wearing the mask. It goes on to say, Biden from the same Russian school textbook, quote, his entire political career has been accompanied by corruption and scandals. He and his family have commercial interests in the Ukraine. Oh, I love it. That is hilarious. That is hilarious. But yeah, it's always interesting to see what they think about you in other countries. And according to Russia, they think that we were mired in election fraud. And there's a lot of people that would agree with that, although, hell, they're not really allowed to talk about it, are they? Not allowed to talk about it. But there you go. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody had to say it. Somebody had to say it. Somebody had to admit it. As we get close to the end of the hour, again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find the live portion Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, on Coffee Talk, and on Prepper University. And special thanks to Brian, who made a donation to the channel today. Always appreciate it. Goes a long way towards helping our feline friends that we take care of. Hey, you could always use melee weapons. I've got a stack of them sitting right over here. Maybe we can show some of them tomorrow. But anyways, it's my favorite. Hold on. It's one of these. That's what you're trying to emulate with your coin purse. See, it's got a nice spring in there. But, you know, you'll hurt somebody. Anyways, thank you, everybody, for joining us here today.